non-fundamentally minded scholars will admit that that is a pure indication of it having been written later, retrospectively put into Jesus' mouth. Now, if you feel this isn't that way, you're certainly entitled to that. If you believe this is his view of and he's clairvoyant to perfect prediction. Anyway, either one or the other is true. You're the decision on that. But that, you see, does not come in Matthew and Mark, I think, until later. When Jesus is leaving the temple and then he curses it or something, and then he says there shall not be one stone standing upon the other. When he's leaving Jerusalem at some point after having been in it, we should come to it. Are you following me? Everyone okay so far? Okay, I'm sorry not to have a lot of discussion about all these things, but if we discuss everything, we'll never get through the material. So you can take it or leave it, do with it what you will, you're the final judge. Okay. So he'd come to Jerusalem, the multitude said, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee," says Matthew 21:10. Mark doesn't say anything about that, just that he came there, but he spent the evenings in Bethany with the 12. Bethany is sort of behind the Mount of Olives, overlooking Jerusalem. I've lived there for a year. I know where it is. You can see the temple from there and the way Jerusalem is constructed. Weren't Mary and Martha from Bethany? And wasn't Simon the leper? Okay, so we've had, you can trace the Bethany references in different Gospels. That doesn't mean you should conflate them all into a single picture. That means you should look at what the issues are separating them all. I mean, the one who wants to make this all work will conflate them all. The person who wants to evaluate historically will compare them. A different thing. Anyway, again, I think that this is the prophet, Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee. That's a little bit like saying in John, and this was the first of the signs he did in Cana of Galilee. Now, Cana of Galilee I took to be symbolic. Cana, Canaanians, Zealots, Galilee, Galileans, also another name in early Christianity for Zealot. Why was Galilean a name for Zealot as well? Because of someone called Judas the Galilean, which is why Judas, by the way, as a name is so important throughout these materials too. It often represents an attack on Judas Iscariot being perhaps an attack on Judas the Galilean and his ideology of resistance to Rome and resistance to paying the taxes. Judas the Galilean appeared when? At the time of the census in 7 AD, the time Jesus is supposed to have been born in the Gospel of Luke, when he told the people not to pay the census. Not to pay the tax, and started a movement that Josephus describes. Now, at that point in the Jewish War and the Antiquities, the two books that Josephus writes, Josephus uses that to launch into a description of the 3 or 4 Jewish so-called sects or schools of thought. Now that is significant because in Luke, that is the birth moment of the Messiah too. In addition, if you look at Josephus, that's when he starts talking about the different sects of the people. So in Josephus's mind, the appearance of Judas the Galilean triggers the division into the sects. You say, well, I don't know anything about Judas the Galilean. Well, read Josephus and you'll know more about him. He particularly is described in the Antiquities, but he also appears in the war. And the thing about Judas the Galilean, weirdly enough, is that his death is not described. Now we get the death in a previous revolutionary episode in the war of a person called Judas of Sepphoris, the person who broke into the armory at Sepphoris and was blamed for a lot of the unrest in 4 BC. When Herod died and the people tried to pull the temple eagle down that he had constructed over the gate of the temple. And Judas Sepphoris being a town in Galilee, looks a lot like Judas the Galilean. And most of those people, as you recall, Herod burnt alive. The people who were involved in the temple eagle all those things are interesting. I don't know what to finally make. Anyway, this looks like, this is the prophet. That looks like the true prophet ideology again of the Ebionites, the Jewish Christians, which you'll find very well laid out in exceeding detail in the Pseudo-Clementine literature again. That's all I can say about that. Okay, so Matthew 21, Mark 11. So they do have him in Bethany, Mark does anyway. And in the morning he returned to the city, and in Matthew he sees a fig tree, and he curses the fig tree for some reason. I don't know why he curses the fig tree, and that's the fig tree is a symbol of the state of Israel or Judea, as often some of these trees are taken to be. You know, in the Roman Judea capta coins, which I've showed you, they're in my book anyway, you can look at them. The Roman Judea capta coins, the weeping female figures symbolizing the beaten state of Judea, the Jews, with Vespasian's picture on the other side, the general who destroyed the temple, and the Palestinian entity is weeping under a fig tree. Now, or a, yeah, I guess she's weeping under a palm fig tree. Yeah, well, that was used there to symbolize the Jewish state. Whether that has anything to do with this, you'll have to decide. Matthew 21, and Jesus entered the temple and cast all of them out who bought and sold in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money table changers, and calls out, quoting Isaiah 56, "My house shall be called a house of prayer and not a den of robbers." Now, it's basically the same in Mark. Luke compresses it a bit, but Mark adds something, doesn't he? And line 17, you see the addition there? And he taught and said unto them, it is not written, no, pardon me, line 16. And he would not suffer any man should carry a vessel through the temple. And he would not suffer any man to carry a vessel through the temple.